Yeah, it's called Hall. It was originally called Ariel, Kentucky. It was Ariel. Basically, it was its own little city back here. It was an African American community.
Hall was the African American community.
Yep.
And most people thought that the poor town was named because we were poor, and we were poor. But John Will Poor, he got 5,000 acres from the center of the river south, and 2-9 Scott got 5,000 acres from the middle of the river north. So it was named after John Will Poor, but we was all poor, so it worked out. It worked out good. Yeah.
But the Indians always called this the dark and, well, Kentucky itself, the dark and bloody grounds. And of course, this was hunting grounds.
But my grandfather was just great friends with every African American that lived up there. I mean, you know, that was the total black section. Poor town, where I was born, was the white section. But they all got along really good.
It was a friendly place. I mean, totally friendly. You could go by and somebody, I remember there was one old lady that lived on this very house up on the hill when you go out. Emma Reinhardt. And she would holler, if she saw anybody coming out, she'd holler, "Hey, are you going to town? Well, come up here a minute." "Honey, would you bring me back some gin?" She all loved her mint gin. So, you know, you'd have to get her some mint, bring us back some mint gin. Hey!
During the onset of the Civil War, the slaves would come up here from the South because they had all heard of Camp Nelson, the training center for the soldiers. It was a Union training camp.
This is Camp Nelson, and we have a wonderful museum that shows the differing types of structures that were here at Camp Nelson.
So they were coming up, and a lot of them were bringing their wives and their children and the elderly with them, escaping from freedom, knowing that they could come up here and possibly get into Camp Nelson and do the training to fight and hopefully gain emancipation.
We have refugee cabin that was built by the women and children refugees that were here. We have a cabin that was built by the federal government after those women and children were evicted, and 130 of them died of exposure.
Slave refugee, it goes deeper than that. Fry's, Spellman's.
Are you a descendant of the General Fry?
Yes.
Well, there you go. It was probably a Fry. He was probably, his relative back there, they're from Danville, probably ran away and came in here and joined the service, and had family who ended up in the refugee camp. And then after the war was over with, the government decided that's another story.
Speed Fry wasn't too sympathetic to the African Americans because he was a slave owner, and his friends, they were from the Danville area, which is just a little south of here, also owned them. So he wanted the slaves to go back to their owners, basically. Those were his friends, and, you know, they needed the help. Didn't want to be in here and tried to oust them.
Black soldiers took the name. I have relatives that fought in the 9th and the 10th. The 116th. The records up here at what they call the White House, which was the headquarters, were in the books.
Why would they take that name?
Well, I mean, they didn't want to keep the names that they had. So they chose a Union name rather than keep the slave names that they had.
I don't like for people, though, to stop the history at the Civil War, the 1861, because everything was going on long before the Civil War down here. Holman's Landing was the first place that they built a steamboat, allegedly. Floated down Kentucky, down Ohio, and down to New Orleans. So I like for them to go back way further than the Civil War.
It was fun here at one time. It was fun. People didn't lock their doors. People spoke to one another. There was no such thing as strangers. There was no such. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody watched out for everybody. There was nobody's dogs on the chain, nobody's dogs behind fences.